Hey everybody, Ringside Dreamer here, and we're going to be starting a new series on the channel, and we're going to be calling it Requiem of War, and it's basically a retrospective of the Monday Night Wars. And why am I doing this is because, well, I'm 30 years old. I was born in 1990, and I started, like most of the country, I started watching wrestling in 1998 when Iron Mike Tyson and Stone Cold were having their big program in WWF, and my whole family started getting into it. I vividly remember SummerSlam of 1998 because of the Highway to Hell theme song. But what I can remember, my first watching in-ring action was in 1998 Survivor Series, that big tournament they had with the Rock being the corporate champion winning. I always remember that Stone Cold beat Big Boss Man in like 10 seconds, 12 seconds, something ridiculous like that. So wrestling in my household was big, but we were a WWF house. I didn't watch any WCW except for one time I was at my neighbor's. They watched WCW, and I was staying the night there on a Monday night. I'm not exactly sure why, but they they had Nitro on, and I was just like, what is this? Why are all these old people? Who are all these old people? Flair and Hogan, and I was just like, who are these people? I have no idea. Like, where's Stone Cold and The Rock? Like, I just didn't get it. My real introduction to WCW was with the Invasion angle in 2001, and I was at the age where at the time I thought it was really cool, but looking back on it, they made a lot of mistakes. You could see that they disrespected the legacy of WCW, and I'm hoping to rectify that in my own small way, because WCW and Monday Nitro in particular did a lot for the business. It made everything better. It gave competition. It gave new life to what Vince McMahon was also doing, and it made Raw better. And overall, that is why the Monday Night Wars and the Attitude Era were boom periods. And one of the very few boom periods that wrestling has ever seen is because of the competition and because of what Nitro was doing and what they started. So in this Requiem of War, I'm hoping to honor WCW, honor my childhood, honor the Attitude Era, honor Monday Nitro in a way that I to respect it now that I'm older and can appreciate it a little bit more. In saying that, let's just get started right off the bat with the first ever Monday Nitro. Coming live from Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Mall of America, the only place big enough the only place big enough to hold Monday Nitro. Where the big boys play. Tell you, if you don't like that catchphrase, where the big boys play, too bad. Too bad. Because you better just get used to it, honestly. Opening up is Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, Mongo McMichael on commentary. You got this really good team, really good dynamics. It's a little rough around the edges at first, but Bobby Heenan makes everything a little bit better, even if Mongo's a little green. In this historic moment, the two people to kick off the first episode of Monday Night Nitro would be a Japanese legend, Jushin Thunder Liger, who this is just another accolade to his long list of accomplishments, things that he's done all over the world twice over, and being in the opening match of the first ever Nitro is a pretty big accolade, nice feather in your cap. He's going off against Flying Brian Pillman, and when I first saw Brian, I'm just like, it's so crazy how much his son looks just like him. Maybe it's not crazy, they're father and son. Not only the looks, but just the way that they move in the ring, they look so similar. This match, it wasn't the greatest match. It's really interesting because it's setting up this rich tradition of WCW and having, the cruiserweights or the high flyers or the Japanese wrestlers come in and open up the show to really get the crowd into it. And that would be a long-standing thing for WCW going forward, kind of just putting these guys on the map. But you look at it, and it wasn't Brian's best night, best performance, but you could tell the crowd didn't know how to react. Like, it was the crowd's first time seeing some of this stuff, and they don't even know how to really react to what they're seeing, what is happening inside of the ring, the kind of moves that they're doing. There's a top rope hurricanrana from Jushin, and it gets a little pop, but then you could just see, you could visibly see the audience just like almost confused, bewildered on what they're watching inside of the ring. They've never seen anything like it. There are some people that are getting into it, but there definitely a lot of wrestling fans were made on this night, which is interesting to say, but you can see it. So a standing switch ends the match for the 1-2-3, Brian Pillman. For being the first match, like I said, it was a little sloppy, but it's a moment. It's a very historic moment, and what would become a tradition of WCW. And overall, I enjoyed it. And then we go to an interview with Hulk Hogan, and he's still red and blue through and through, and he's at Pasta Mania. Now, I don't really know too much about this. This is a real store in the Mall of America, or was it a real store, or is it still a store? Is Pasta Mania? Somebody tell me, is Pasta Mania still a store, still a restaurant in the Mall of America? If it is, good on you, Hulk, for having that kind of staying power. Pasta Mania, Pasta Maniacs. He's like, you gotta stay fit and trim eating your Pasta Mania. Pasta is bad. It has a lot of carbs. Don't expect to bulk up just eating pasta. I think it's the main thing to go about this. We go to a U.S. title match. Ric Flair, woo, the Nature Boy, against Sting. And for anybody who would be watching WCW for the first time, I really like how this show is set up. One, it's really quick. It's only an hour. It's 45 minutes. Brisk, to the point, which is refreshing to watch for Nitro and for Raw at this time period. It's very, very refreshing to watch. Now, you open the show with the cruiserweights, something different, something high flying you're not going to see everywhere. And then you go into, two of the bigger stars, which is Sting and Ric Flair. When you think WCW, you think Sting and Ric Flair. So you have these two guys come out. Before they even lock up, though, you had the first big moment of the night, and really the first shot fired in the war, which is the debut of Lex Luger. And it's very interesting how this is played off, because nobody really knows how to react to it. They don't, Eric Bischoff is assuming, they're already trying to blur the lines between kayfabe and reality. Eric Bischoff is saying that he doesn't work here. He works for the other guy. What's he doing here? Get him out of here. Bobby Heenan's like, he's just an audience member. What's the big deal? So they're already trying to blur the lines, which is something that WCW would definitely lean heavily into, and to their detriment at times. But during this moment, it was just so beautiful. In this series, I'm really trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody watching this at the time, and my mind would be completely blown just watching Lex Luger on WWF programming the week before, and then having him come out here, and Lex Luger's no joke. He's not a jabroni. He is not a lower mid card guy. Lex Luger was in the championship picture. Lex Luger had the Lex Express. Lex Luger was a big deal for a long time. They tried to make him the next Hogan, but they didn't really capitalize on it. I'm not saying that he was ever going to be as big as Hogan, but I just don't think in a way, they kind of did Lex dirty in the WWF. But Lex comes out here, crowd goes completely insane. It's just for a moment, and then he leaves. And then, it's so crazy. Sting and Flair have their match, and Sting is one of those guys. Instantly, even the crowd is chanting for Luger. So the crowd, you'd think, oh, the crowd's not going to be as into this match. And all it takes is, one yell from Sting to get the crowd back into his match, back into what he's doing. Because Sting now, then, forever, WWE. But Sting will be forever a superstar. He knows how to have the crowd in the palm of his hand. Watching these two guys, like, Sting was so strong. Watching these two guys in what arguably could be called the prime of their career at this time, man, it's just something special. And this definitely not their greatest match, not even close. But the way that they are, the way that they flow together at this time, it just works so well. They can't really have a bad match together. It's Sting and Flair. They do their thing. Arn Anderson comes down, and I just think automatically, oh man, Sting's about to get beat up. Because I don't. So I'm watching this fresh. I don't know what's been happening before that. Arn and Ric Flair have been beefing a little bit. So I'm just thinking, oh man, Sting's about to get jumped by the Four Horsemen every time. Sting is an idiot as usual, and he looks at Arn. Arn's not even doing anything at this time. Like, Arn is literally just sitting there watching the match, and then Sting like has to jaw jack to him for some reason. Ric Flair comes, chop block, figure four, and then he just holds on to the ropes and like doesn't. It's like, one thing I will say, it's definitely like it was a weird ending because he just like held on to the ropes. Which I guess sets up another match for them down the line. But why would you intentionally get disqualified? Ric Flair gets disqualified, and Arn comes in the ring, battles with Rick. I did like this a lot. It's setting up a reason for Rick and Sting to have another match down the line, but it's also, planting seeds for Arn and Rick fighting, having their feud. So it's definitely interesting to see how they're doing interweaving multiple things into one segment. After that, Scott Norton gets in Mongo McMichael's face, and then Macho Man comes out. And Macho Man, it's good to see him, but I'm just like, I don't. Again, I'm trying to go in this blind, and I don't really know, except for Mach, obviously. But who this is or why I should care. Like 10 seconds, it was in and out, it was whatever. And then a vignette's played for Sabu, and I find it interesting because nowadays we take these things for granted because we're used to Sabu and the whole generation of talent that Sabu spawned. But back in 1995, Sabu, unless you were a tape trader, you were familiar with ECW, lived in that area, you knew what it was, you were on the inside, which was a lot harder back then than it is now. Sabu would have been somebody that you never would have seen before, and the kind of things he was doing were innovative and insane. The fact that they're debuting these people, they're having these really massive debuts, their WCW and Nitro are, bringing even more people in. They have a clear idea, I do believe, at least now, of what they're trying to build, based on the lower scene of high flying guys, and then the mid card scene, the U.S. title scene of workhorses, and the main event scene of people like Hogan and Big Bubba and the bigger guys. Which, speaking of, and they also have BK Wall Street, the old IRS. Definitely not as big of a deal as Luger, but you're still like taking talent. This is at the time it was unheard of. You're turning on the TV and you're like, oh, I know this guy. I recognize this guy. What's he doing here? Let me sit here and watch this. Was IRS anybody's favorite wrestler? I don't think so. But that character of IRS and like, you gotta pay your taxes. Nobody likes paying their taxes. That's a good heel character. You can make a little bit of money off of that. I mean, it's no Luger, but still, it's a get. It's definitely a get at the time. And then the main event, Big Bubba, aka Boss Man, versus Hogan. And honestly, it was just a typical Hogan match. And even at this time, you can hear, like I said, the luster wearing off of Hogan's character. It ends with what do you want me to say? Like a big boot leg drop combo, 2-for-1 with a biscuit. Dungeon of Doom come out. Hulk Hogan's beating there's like 5 of them. And they don't lay a hand on him. And then Luger comes out to make the save. And I don't know why he comes out to make the save, because he didn't need it. I think I just saw this on AEW not too long ago when there was Paul White. Billy Gunn came out to make the save that he didn't actually need help with. So Luger comes out to make the save. Afterwards, you have Luger, Sting, Macho, and Hogan in the ring. And you can just, the star power and just how the crowd's reacting, asking him why he came here, why he's here, blurring the lines between reality and fiction. Why are you here? And Luger is like, I've been there, I've been where you're at, and I came here to be the best. He's like, to me, you're the only world champion. So he's like, he's just putting it over really hard from the beginning. And the crowd is into it at this point. They really are. And you can tell these guys are stars just because of the way, even if the crowd wasn't into it for most of the night, when the big boys come out, they're hooked. And they set up a championship match, and because that's what Luger wants, not for next month or next year, but next week on Nitro. So again, this is going to be a tradition going forward, that I know of, that Nitro was the place to be. They always try to set it up, and especially like, I'll tell you this right now. They are always trying to set it up like, oh, they want you to get you to watch Nitro. Important moments happen on Nitro, not so much the pay-per-view. At least not all the time. But when I will say this, like, it makes you want to watch the next week. And that's a big deal. Man, if I would have been watching Nitro, the first Nitro, I would have absolutely been enthralled by it. I would have never been able to touch the remote, and WCW would have made a new fan right off the rip, because it was so good, so crisp, so clean, like so compact, and everything flowed so great. And the hook, especially at the end, is like, wow, okay, I have to watch next week. This was good, but now I need to watch next week because I need to know what's gonna happen. Like, I need to know if Luger's gonna win. And I never really watched a lot of Luger, but just like from his look to his presentation, Luger, I don't understand why he wasn't the man in WWF. I really don't understand why he wasn't the man, because he's, to me, he looks like he's got everything, like the total package, Lex Luger, duh. But what I am sure of is that this was a really, really good show, and the way to cement yourself. This was the last week. WWE doesn't have a show to run against this. This is the last week that WWE Raw ever took off. Maybe for good reason, because there was nothing to stop a wrestling fan from finding and watching this at that time, and there would have been no incentive to watch WWE because it wasn't on at the time. And a lot of people just got hooked on Nitro, and a lot of people that probably didn't know about WCW at the time got into WCW. Man, this was a really, really good show. So obviously, because there was no Raw, we're gonna do a little competition, but there was no Raw for this week in 1995. So I gotta give it to WCW. And the war so far, it is WCW 1 and WWF 0. And I can't wait for next week, September 11th Nitro, and the September 11th of Raw, where the first actual competition between Raw and Nitro will take place, and figure out on the next episode of Requiem of War who will win that.